Which stocks in which sectors are seeing sustained record moves above a key moving average? I quantified all in today's REKTelligence report. As a friendly reminder, everything in today's show is for informational purposes only. There is no investment advice given. All right, let's get into the show. Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Dave Bush. This is the All Markets Report where I quantify across asset classes with an eye to the week ahead. And today is a little different. I'm going to have a singular focus, which is equities related, and also bring you an announcement about the REKTelligence Edge Finder. I'm excited about it. All that ahead. Stay tuned. Let's get right into this week's key themes. As mentioned, I have a very singular and simple focus this week, which is with major stock market averages near all-time highs, how many stocks and which stocks are showing sustained moves above their respective 200-day moving averages, and what can we learn from what we're seeing? So you'll see what I mean by this in a moment. And I looked through the NASDAQ 100 index, I looked at the S&P 400 index, that's mid caps, and some top ETFs, a commodities list, and a recent Investors Business Daily 50 list. All of that ahead. All right, before I get into today's stock market update, I want to share with you an announcement, something I'm working on, and that is the REKTelligence Edge Finder. This will unearth high probability opportunities over 5,000 stocks and ETFs in real time over many different setups. And this is just one example of the kind of thing you'll see. Now, this is not how it will look. This is research behind it. So for example, Adobe here, you can see average trade for this particular setup with all the conditions, 3.03%, just north of 3%. Average days to get that, historically 6.1 days, average percent per day, around 0.5%, just south of that. Some risk information, and very importantly, is the trade statistically significant? Does it pass statistical muster? Is it meaningful enough to even consider? That is crucial. Most traders don't do that. That will all be part of the scanner. Another example of what you'll see, this is a Comcast example. Average trade just over 4% inside 7 days on average historically. Average percent per day is 0.57%. And some risk information, statistical significance again, of course, yes, here. And lastly, analog devices or ADI, average trade 4.24%, average days to get that. Again, kind of a swing time frame, pretty quick, 6.2 days on average. Average percent per day, 0.687%, risk information, and the rating for t-test or statistical significance. So all of that is coming. Obviously, I'll make many announcements about it. Let's get into today's update. All right, to the heart of today's video, which is the sustained move indicator. We've got a gold futures chart on screen. The red moving average is the 200-day moving average. You'll see that on every single chart, and every chart is a daily chart as well. Down at the bottom, you see these sharp upslopes and some downslopes here on occasion. This is the sustained move indicator. It's simply measuring the sustained or consecutive days above the 200 MA. So when you see a very sharp peak, as you do here on the right-hand side, you're seeing it has been above it for many days. In fact, you can look up how many days over here on the right-hand side. I've got always that table there. So in this case, gold futures currently have been above the 200 MA for 570 trading days. The max above is 731. So, we're not quite there with gold futures. That occurred in 2011 in December. And I'll skip max days below. That's really not our focus today. The first date here for the data is 1975. So you have a little bit of perspective on how long this has been counting this type of consecutive streak. Let's move on to GDX, VanEck Gold Miners ETF. And you can see data here from 2006 to the present. ETFs, obviously, we don't have as much data typically as we do for individual stocks and indices. And we can see consecutive days here, 273, max days, 273. So this is hitting its record right now in terms of sustained move above that 200 MA. We move to the Silver Trust, and this is the iShares SLV ETF. You can see, obviously, it's had this pronounced move. We've certainly quantified silver in various ways, futures and ETF potentially in recent weeks. Here we've got consecutive days above the 200 are 217. The max days, however, 290. Again, that was from 2011. And we see the data here, 2006, basically to the present. Another precious metals index here. And I want to pause. I didn't set out to cover this sector. This is just what's coming up as I went through the NASDAQ 100 index, the S&P 400 index, and the others that I listed earlier. So the Philly Gold and Silver Sector Index, that's what we're looking at here. This has been around for quite some time, 1983 to the present. And this is hitting its consecutive days above the 200 right now at 268. Let's move on. We've got IM Gold Corp, now an individual stock. IAG is the ticker. From the S&P 400, gold and basic materials. No surprise, the sector there. Consecutive days above the 200, 505. This is a record, 505. So hitting that right now. Agnico Eagle Mines, AEM, again, hitting it right now, 494 days sustained above the 200 MA. Now, in a future Edge report, most likely, I'll take a look at quantifying these never before events, or at least ways to try to quantify and get a beat on, will this continue, will this revert? Obviously, that is the big question out there. I'm not dealing with that today, but I am bringing you another way of looking at this, which we'll kind of get to at the end. All right, let's move on to Kinross, I should say, Gold Corp, KGC. And this is 494 above the 200 MA, another record. HWM, now we're moving out of the gold sector. I've got another S&P 400 name hitting a record at 576 days above its 200. This is an aerospace and defense. Now we're not seeing AI here. Of course, all companies are going to use AI to some degree, but again, nothing patently AI so far in our list. We see UI here. This has been above its 200 MA for 445 days. Again, a record from the S&P 400. This is a communications name. And we see GXO. This is freight and logistics, 169 days. Data is only from 2021 to the present, but again, hitting a record. Let's move to IDA. This is a utility, electric utility primarily. And this is 402 days, another record from the S&P 400, data back to 1968. Pretty interesting there. Is this data center related? Very possibly. Sustained move Inspire, SR, 405 days now. Again, another utility. And we see data back to 1968 here as well. Let's keep going. And you see a blank screen. None in the NASDAQ 100 index met this record. None were hitting their highest max days above their respective 200-day moving averages. Not a single name of the 101 symbols inside the NASDAQ 100. Remember, Google has two symbols, GOOG and GOOGL, so that's why it's 101. But I thought that was noteworthy here. No symbols in the NASDAQ 100 hitting this record. So we've concentrated on this before. We've quantified it where value really is seeing a nice recovery. The market's actually broadening out even as the big tech names often take a break. All right, everyone, thanks for watching today's All Markets Report, where I stuck with equities. And stay tuned for Thursday's Edge Report, where I'm going to quantify some of these style opportunities, which I showed towards the beginning of today's video in Thursday's Edge Report. All of that ahead. Have a great week. I'll see you soon. Cheers from the Caribbean.